How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for letting me do this interview with you.
Yeah, I'm happy to help.
I haven't thought of I've been doing the same name of everything forever, and I've been thinking about adding something different to this, so I won't just say who I am. It's going to be more geared to you.
Okay.
Where are you from?
Originally, I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas.
Ah.
Kind of moved around quite a bit as a child, but mainly within that North Texas region.
North Texas. You know, I'm starting to get more insight about Dallas.
It grows so fast. You know, I've been away for a little while, so now every time I go back, it's different. It's different than Tulsa for sure.
It is. I mean, it's life. It's a lot of
very fast paced.
You wouldn't think that, but
no, because it's in Texas, and when you think like big city, fast life, you don't think of Texas.
You do not. I think about I think about Chevy trucks.
Yeah.
Some horses, some cows.
And they do have some of that there.
On that, yeah.
Not much anymore.
Not much anymore. So, what is something that growing up in those areas that stuck with you throughout childhood?
So it's funny. My dad still has a picture. My grandparents had a farm just south of Dallas in a little town called DeSoto, and it's all built up now. But they have a picture of my grandparents and some friends or something, and they're all on horseback, lined up like next to each other, and you can see the Dallas skyline in the background because you could see it from their farm back in those days, probably like 80s, early 90s.
Oh yeah, I bet that was beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Just because, like you said, when you think Dallas, you don't think of horses.
You don't.
But that's kind of how I grew up. I had, kind of the best of the city and the country, and I feel like Tulsa kind of has a good balance of that too.
You think Tulsa got a balance of it?
A little bit, yeah.
There's a little bit. So what's your name?
Tara.
Last name?
Kennedy.
Kennedy. Yeah, is that your maiden name or?
Yes, I have never changed my name. I've been married twice, and I've always kept my name I was born with. So.
What made you do that?
Oh, because when I was growing up, my mom got married quite a bit. I had a lot of stepdads come and go, and it was funny because she had this little joke that every time she changed her name, she got divorced within a year.
Oh, wow.
But it's also my dad's name, and
want to keep that legacy
going?
My
dad, yeah.
Is your dad still alive?
Yes.
Amen. Are you the only girl, or?
I am the only girl in my family.
Wow. Any brothers?
I've got 2 biological brothers, and then of course I had stepbrothers growing up. Never had a sister.
Oh wow.
I was always the only girl.
So you're the only girl. Okay. Do you feel like you were made the princess, or you had to fit in with the boys?
I was not the princess like my grandma, I'd go visit her, and I was her only granddaughter, and she would really spoil me with like clothes and dresses and stuff like that. But my parents were just kind of partial to boys, and they weren't into the princess thing.
Oh, they had more boys than
I was the outlier and kind of the scapegoat. So
when you say a scapegoat, do you mean like with your brothers, like it was her fault, or?
Yeah. Yeah, I was moody. So we get labeled as emotional.
Oh wow. So, are you
yeah.
close with your siblings today?
Today, not so much. I actually was really close with so I have 1 full brother. I actually have 3 biological brothers. I think I said 2 before, but my oldest one is through a different mom. He has a different mom, and then my youngest one has a different dad. So I have 1 brother that I really grew up with, and we were really close growing up. But life happens, and he's got a family now, and I don't really talk to him very much.
I got you. Do you think it started life in around teenage years, or when you got a little older, or?
No, actually, up till almost I was in my 30s. We were pretty tight.
So that's kind of recent, really.
Yeah. And he got married and had a kid, and just lot of responsibility.
Yeah, life start life and then growing up.
Yeah.
So are you single?
I am single right now.
By choice or?
Definitely by choice. Yeah.
Do you think that, is it a healing thing or just a fun thing?
It's a healing thing. It took me a long time to really find myself after the stuff that I went through in childhood and into adulthood with relationships. So,
If you don't mind sharing, what is something in your childhood that makes you, that made you so uncomfortable that it kind of shedded some thick skin as an adult?
yeah, I mean, my stepdads, they were all abusive in one way or another.
Drinking.
Drinking, yeah. My first stepdad, I don't remember him drinking or doing any type of, mind-altering substances, but he was the one who physically and sexually abused me.
So he was in a clear mind.
Yeah, it would make more sense if it was drugs and alcohol, but it wasn't.
Right, so when you say stepdads, mom must have been got to be a knockout because you're absolutely gorgeous.
Thank
so
you.
Mom definitely.
Yeah, I do get told that I look like my mom. She was very beautiful when she was younger.
Is she still alive today?
She is.
Does she still have those traits, or do you feel like she's grown up more?
Yeah, we all age. Age is coming for everybody.
Right.
She was always more of a tomboy. So I'm like a girly girl, and I like to get fixed up and prettied up and stuff. And just like, she's naturally beautiful, but she's not into the big blonde hair and makeup and eyelashes and stuff like I am. So it's a different type of beautiful, but yeah.
Shut up. So that's that 70s, 60s.
Yeah.
They were more natural kind of thing.
She grew up in the 60s and 70s, so yeah.
So they wore makeup, but it was, if you look at most of those magazines back in those days, it was like really, really.
She was very athletic. She was very fit.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of watched her over the years as she had really terrible relationships with men. Kind of would let herself go at times.
Yeah,
gain a lot of weight and just not take care of herself. And I don't know, I could tell that she had low self-esteem, and she's gonna pass that on to me in a way.
Do you feel like she felt like she was at her best when she was in a relationship? A good relationship? Like the man kind of what fueled her conversation, her get up and go?
I definitely felt like she prioritized men in her life, which we're not meant to be alone.
Right.
So I don't necessarily fault her for that. The choices she made were not ideal. So.
Do you think she got it from someone, like, growing up, like someone trained her to, like, hey, you need a husband, you gotta have a husband?
Well, her parents were never divorced. They fought a lot. They were Catholic. They didn't believe in divorce. So it was, I think, she was definitely exposed to that toxicity. But yeah, she grew up where you didn't get divorced. So you got married young and you stayed married.
Right, unless they passed on or something happened, and then you got to marry again. I know some people that spouse died or they got divorced and was married again like in 6 months, or even less than that. I was like, oh wow, and here I am.
We live in different times. Women are allowed to be themselves outside of a man.
Right. So if you don't mind, how many times have you been married?
So twice legally, and then I was common law married to my youngest daughter's dad. So I had to pretty much go through the divorce process. So married twice, divorced 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because we're in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, it's custody issues. So.
Okay. Which one would you say that you were at your best? Like, it made you feel at your best, and which one you feel like made you feel at your lowest?
They were all pretty bad.
They're all pretty bad.
My first husband was very, very physically abusive, and he's passed away now. I met him when I was 17, and within a year I got pregnant. So I was pregnant when I graduated high school. Didn't go to my
that
graduation.
first love type of thing.
Yeah, first
blind love.
I don't know. In the recent years, my definition of love has kind of changed, and if I really look back, I'm like, was that love? Because
Right.
love doesn't hurt like that.
Right.
So.
I read a book when I was younger, and it's called The Illusion of Love, and it goes through characteristics of things that we think is love versus things that are actual love, and I could definitely see in my own self some illusions I put on myself.
And we trauma bond, especially if you grew up in chaos and turmoil and being abused by people you were supposed to trust, and you don't know the difference between a trauma bond and being in love.
So do you say where one was more, you know how sometimes people fake who they are?
Yeah.
You have any of those situations where he faked like he was one thing, and then once he got you, he was completely the opposite?
Oh yeah, my last husband, we were married. We made it to our first year anniversary, and within a month after that I left, because he was just not the person he portrayed himself to be. And we got married fast. He was just very manipulative, and I was at a point in my life, I was hit mid-30s and thought, you know, I need to find one and settle down.
Right.
So I had been single for years at that point.
Right.
Not single, like I had dated and been in, you know, short-term relationships, but I hadn't really been in a long-term relationship in years. And so I was like, man, I'm not getting any younger. It's time to settle down. And he convinced me that he wanted the same things and, you know, wanted to build a family and all these things. And he ended up, he was an addict. So.
What was he addicted to?
So he had previously been addicted to opiates, whatever they're called, like, you know, oxys and stuff like that. And he was one of those that got clean off the oxys, but then he started abusing Suboxone, and come to find out he was doing kratom, which you could just go to the store and buy kratom.
What
but
is
the
kratom?
amounts that, I don't know exactly, it comes from a plant. But apparently there's different strains of it. Apparently it can have the same effect on the body as opiates, or basically give you the same high if you do enough of it. And I mean, he was buying these big bags and hiding the bags from me.
Wow.
So.
Did he ever try to introduce it to you, or?
Yeah. One time he bought me a strain that was supposed to be like more of an upper, and I mean, I did it that one time. I ended up getting sick. Partied a little too hard, right. And I was like, it's not for me. Because I don't like to be sick. If something, you know, even going out drinking, if I get a hangover, I'm like, I don't like this, so I'm not going to do it. So I did do that once, and then I think I had a headache one day, and he was like, oh, take this Suboxone, or take half of one, and it didn't help my headache. It made it worse, and also knocked me out for the rest of the day.
So did he operate being, so it was probably like a downer?
Yeah, he was, I mean, he'd been an addict for years, and that was his state of mind, so that's how he operated.
Did you know he was an addict when you met him, or he snuck that on you?
I did know that he had gone through some treatment. He was actually living in a sober house when I met him. I let him move in with me. Addict. Yeah, but, you know, he was telling me he was clean. And
he was ready.
And he was doing this program, the Suboxone program, and looking back, I'm like, how was I that naive? But that's what manipulators do.
Right.
They don't tell you that they're manipulating you.
Right, and then sometimes we don't tell ourselves, like, we feel uncomfortable inside. We kind of pause and look at a person, but it's like, you know, I didn't see what I saw, but let's I'm not gonna, we put it off as I'm not going to judge.
Yeah, you want to see the good in people. And,
I'm not going to judge.
You also think, oh man, because you've been through a lot, especially, and you think, wow, this person's been through a lot. They must want to do better.
Right, because you want to do
would
better.
in those shoes, yeah. Not everybody's the same. I'll just put it that way.
Right. So what made you leave? What made you leave all of them?
Well, the first one, he was so physically abusive. And looking back now, I'm lucky I got away with my life because there's so many things that he did to me and situations that he put me in that I wouldn't be here today. It's amazing that I am.
And you said he passed, right?
Yeah, he had addiction issues as well. Alcohol and methamphetamines at one point.
And that was the cause of his death?
I don't know the specific details. I do know he had some kind of like emergency like liver failure or something, and then he was admitted to the hospital and he was put on dialysis. And so obviously there were some kidney issues going on too, I think. And then I was told he was having very bad alcohol withdrawals.
So, yeah.
While he was in a coma. So, yeah. And there's a lot of times nothing they can do about those.
You're right. I just lost my brother to that.
Oh, man. I'm sorry.
Last week. But God gave us an extra 15 months. Last year they said he had, 60 days.
Wow.
We got an extra 15 months. And he got a new liver, but the new liver rejected. So. And I just, in my head, I'm thinking, like, did he go back? Yeah,
you
but
never know.
You never know. I just try not to judge, you never realize how much when someone has an alcohol problem, how much it becomes your problem.
And they hide it, too. They're very good at hiding it.
And it's more in men. I mean, I've seen a lot of women do the same thing and kill themselves. But it's different when you're like, I really believe most marriages, most women, that's number one thing they do complain about is he drank. Was drinking an issue with you and him when you were together?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did things like took my car out on a joyride and ended up wrapping it around the car looked like this. It was curved. And his brothers were with him. They told me they were going to the store. Now that I say that out loud, I knew they weren't going to the store.
Right.
They were gone for hours, get a phone call from the police saying they're in the hospital, go to the hospital. Next morning the news comes on, my car's on the news.
And wrapped around a pole or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was in Dallas. It was on the Dallas Morning News.
It was on the news. My car's on the news.
That's my car.
What did he have to say?
There was a lot of guilt and shame in his behavior there, and guilt and shame can really serve a purpose, but when people use them, it's like it was just it just fueled the alcoholism more. You would think going through something like that, maybe I should stop drinking.
Right. A lot of people, when they survive horrific events, they feel like they cheated death, so they get a little bit more crash dummy. Just I had a cousin like that. He felt like I shook death. I'm invisible.
I think he had a little bit of that too. He was always just very reckless with his life and mine.
How did he treat your child together?
He was good with her. I would never let him have her unsupervised because just very neglectful. Didn't abuse her, but also wouldn't watch her.
Right, just
care more about
himself.
Drinking and
Self-absorbed.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I forgot she was here. She's home. Oh, she's hungry. I didn't know she didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Wow. So what made you leave? How old were you when you left?
So I got with him when I was 17. I think I was about 21 when I finally had enough and started the divorce process. It was just, I'm a child and I had a child, and then it was like I was raising another child. And that was a lot. And of course, I had no work experience. I had no life experience. I decided I wanted to join the military. I wanted to join the Air Force when I was in high school, and I had actually went through the processing and everything, and I was supposed to leave for basic training about a month after I found out I was pregnant. So, yeah. So, but then I learned about the Air National Guard was what I ended up joining, and man, he got even more abusive. Just knowing that I was going to be doing something for myself and would be able to take care of myself and my child, he got more controlling. And
the more you wanted to elevate, it seemed like the more he got controlling.
And I just finally had enough. I went back home to my grandma.
Sounds like he was jealous of you.
Could be, yeah. A little bit of jealousy, and also just, seeing me as property, and he didn't want to let that go. When you have someone that's that controlling, like they want to really dig their claws in you, and if you show any amount of independence, it just triggers them.
All the way. So your second husband, how did you meet him?
So my youngest daughter's dad, we were never married. We met through friends, and it was just he came from a really bad background, and
trauma bonding.
Yeah, and I came from a bad background too, and like I said, we take it for granted that people want to do better and want to better themselves, so picked up a stray. I picked up strays, that's what they are. We never got married. We had planned to get married, actually, because he moved in with me, I had a baby, and we were planning a wedding, and I was actually in the process of, I was looking into buying a house, because I got my VA benefit, my VA housing benefit through the National Guard. So you have to be in the National Guard 6 years, and then you qualify for a VA home loan. And I have been building my credit up and was looking at buying a house, and I just kind of I was like, do I want to buy a house with this person?
Wow. Right.
And so really looking into it from a perspective of, hey, I've been building my career, building my credit, getting ready to buy a house, and in the 2 or 3 years we had been together at that point, he was working a $12 an hour job and didn't want to do anything other than that. So.
What, he didn't have no visions for himself, no dreams?
No motivation, no goals.
Didn't know where he wanted to be in 5 years. This is just it, this is cool.
Yeah, and that just did not mesh with me, and I was like, I don't want to invest in a home and end up having to, down the line when I've really had enough, split my investments. So I thought it was just best to end it there.
So it's safe to say he wasn't a wise investment.
No.
He was not a wise investment at all.
And he just wasn't the one, and that's okay. He did set out to make my life a living hell after I left him. He did get physical with me a couple of times. He even held my own gun to my head, and then filed a protective order to keep my daughter away from me, saying that I was dangerous because I had a gun. So,
wow.
Yeah, I had to fight that. I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on a lawyer, and then 2-year custody battle. So it was every bit as bad as getting a divorce.
I bet.
Except I didn't invest any assets that we had to split, so there's that.
Did you guys have to split custody with the baby, or?
He was trying to keep her away from me. It took me a while to get, I had to keep getting my visitation rights as much of and then now we have split custody. So.
How old is she now?
She's 12 now.
How did she take it? Was that?
She was 2 at the time that all this happened, so she doesn't really remember. In fact, as long as she's remembered, because he lives with his family, so that's her primary residence. So as long as she can remember, that's how it's been. But that's not how it was.
Right.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like, well, he was being a butt, wasn't he?
Yeah. After, I was like, I had pushed him for years and years, or the 2 or 3 years that we had been together, to just do better. He didn't want to do better. He wanted to do the bare minimum, and it didn't work out. Like I said, people want different things, and I tried to split amicably, but quickly found out he's also a narcissist.
Wow.
And yeah, he put his hands on me a few times and put a gun to my head, and it was at that point I realized this cannot be amicable.
Do you think your childhood watching Mom, do you see any of those men in your stepdads? Like, characterized? Do you see any of them in your stepdad?
So my second official husband, I guess the third one, I very much, after we got married, I very much saw one of my stepdads in him. Just very controlling, very, like, textbook narcissist. Like, you can call anybody a narcissist, but, because we all have narcissistic traits, but these two people are like textbook narcissism, a little bit of like antisocial personality in there too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Did it make you feel like, I wouldn't say there's a cloud, but like passed down? Do you feel like there's some things that you seen that like you couldn't help but take on?
I can tell you what I didn't see was an example of a healthy relationship or a healthy male figure in my life. My dad wasn't around. My dad was in the Army, and I think he and my mom had a very toxic relationship. And she told me all about it growing up, and that was none of my business. You shouldn't do that to your kids. But yeah, no, I just never had a male role model to look up to or an example of a healthy relationship and how that works. So it makes sense that I chose who I chose.
Right. Do you over the years when they got older, did they heal differences as parents for you?
They do get along better now. When I was growing up, they couldn't be in the same room. And it's funny, when I had kids, they kind of decided to put their differences aside for my kids.
That's good.
You couldn't do that for your own kids, but pass is a pass. So.
We learn. I'm pretty sure you'll be a different grandmother than a mother. It's something about getting older. You're just like, okay.
You mature and you kind of realize where you messed up.
So do you think that is love off the table? Do you think that you're still invested into your love, or do you still expect it?
I'm a hopeless romantic. I think that there's somebody out there for everybody, and I don't put people, or I try not to put all men into the category of that one particular stereotype, just because that's all I was ever exposed to. So.
From my story, I had a series talking about why I was attracted to men with psychotic traits.
Yeah.
A little background. I have two of my ex-husband and my second daughter's father legally have psychotic traits.
Oh
wow.
wow.
And the first one, he just kind of escaped, go through the system and kind of.
Yeah, they know exactly which lines they can cross, and they know what they're doing. That's the scary part.
Very scary. I started wondering in myself, like, what attracts me to.
Yeah, because you have to look. And it's not victim blaming, but you have to look at the part you play in your own suffering, right?
Right.
So you have to figure out what is it within, what broken part of me attracted me to this person. So.
And you're right, because I think mine was a straight looks. I don't even think mine was trauma bonding.
None of mine were even good looking.
I think mine was just straight off looks and looking at social media, and we didn't even have social media back then, but just videos and fantasy, you know. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was thinking. So when you stepped away from your third one, what made you say, you know what, this is it? It's about me.
He had started getting really physical with me, not like, you know, like not really injuring me, but still like kind of manhandling me and stuff like that. And I will never put up with that again. So, and especially, you know, I have my youngest daughter is still in the house, and having her around, I will not have my children around that, having grown up with that. So, and that was a lot of the motivation for me leaving my first one, because my oldest daughter had started to talk and was kind of repeating things. Like she would make her toys argue and yell at each other.
How did that make you feel?
Horrible. And I was like, you know, she's just repeating what she's heard. So, you know, the first it's very concerning. Like, why would my kid yell, "I hate you," have her toys yell at each other, and then it's like, children mimic their environment.
Oh, so your baby was a good reason for you to stand up.
For sure.
Proud of you, because a lot of people don't.
No.
A lot of ladies stay there for the sake of love, marriage. For a lot of women don't want to be raising a kid alone. You know.
Then that's scary. I mean, I get it, but my biggest fear, you know, having been around domestic violence and, you know, being abused myself, that part I kind of pushed back to the side, but seeing my mom getting hit was very, like, it sticks out in my mind because you're watching it. So I don't want my kids.
So did your stepdad ever get any time for what he done to you, or was it just swept underneath the rug?
It was all swept under the rug.
That's where the pain comes from right there.
Yeah, and a lot of it, he was physically abusive, but every time I would say something to an adult, and he would leave bruises on me, and I was always getting a spanking, like daily. And, you know, even I can remember being a child, like 5, 6, 7 years old, knowing like this is too much. My friends don't get spanked this much. And they certainly don't get spanked by a man that's not their father. So I definitely noticed that things were wrong, but it was just always drilled in my head that I was bad. And if I would stop misbehaving, he would stop doing that. Looking back now, because he started sexually abusing me, I didn't say anything, you know, because, well, if I'd stopped being bad, he'd stop touching me. Now that I'm an adult, I feel like there was some gratification on his end of paddling me. So.
Did any karma come back to him growing up?
I don't know. Him and my mom eventually split after a few years of that, and I don't know where he is in the world today. And
did she ever apologize over the years? Or is just all of it swept underneath the rug?
It just kind of got swept under the rug. She did. I did tell her, like 20 years later, I came out and told her that he did that to me, and she sent him a text message saying that she knew what he did, and I don't know what else, and he never responded to it. He didn't even bother denying it.
Oh, wow. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I remember he had gotten remarried, and I have a little brother. He's a dad, and his wife had left a bruise on him, and my mom was raising hell with him over it. And my grandma took the phone and she said, "You're not going to see him anymore, and if you try to fight him in court, I'm going to put Tara on the stand, and she's going to tell everybody what you did." And he said, "Okay," and hung up the phone.
And that was it?
Yeah. I was about 15 at the time.
Oh, yeah.
At that point in time. So I was like, you knew what was going on and you didn't say anything then?
Wow, it made you look at her in a different way, too. That would have made me look at it a different way. I really would. I'm sorry. Hold on, let me get something real quick. I'm sorry, because my mother didn't believe me. It hurts when they don't believe.
Yeah.
It hurts when they don't believe. I'm sorry. It's a big towel, but.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you.
I mean, it hurts. My mother, grandmother, and them didn't believe me either. So I definitely understand why you. Or if they knew, they didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's that era.
Yeah.
That's that
'Cause
era.
they didn't, but she did say something when it came to standing up for one of the boys.
Yeah.
But when it was happening to me, and I was getting blamed for all this stuff, I was just a horrible child. Crickets.
Do you feel like your mother wanted you to feel what she felt growing up, or as a woman, young woman?
I don't know. I don't think my mom was never sexually abused or physically abused as a child. And in retrospect, I think that she should have known that something was going on, because there's always signs like a kid not wanting to go to bed at night, not wanting to sleep in their own room, and things like that.
Right.
But I don't think that she paid that much attention. But when it was so obvious that my grandmother knew.
Right. Somebody had to say something to somebody. Somebody had to say something. Somebody saw something.
Yeah.
And chose to. In those times that they felt like they were handling themselves, but a lot of women really did not go to get help.
When I first told my mom, she said it was embarrassing.
Wow.
And
How did that make you feel?
Well, I told my therapist that, and she was like, she should be embarrassed.
Right.
But no, like it was just seen as this like shameful thing that should be kept under wraps, and all they were doing was protecting him.
Right, no protection of me. What about me? That's what I was saying. What about me, though?
Yeah,
You're protecting him, but what about me? Do I get to tell my story? Do I get to... What about me? That's what it... What about me? You know, I think a lot of women back then were more scared of being embarrassed, or in the older times, being called a certain type of woman, versus today, we don't care.
Yeah.
What you say about
well,
us.
we still get called names, but I mean, it really led to me having poor boundary issues later in life.
Did you become real protective over your girls?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I can see that. How old is your youngest baby now?
She's 12.
So I could see a good part of being single. Is that one of the reasons why you're kind of single now? Like, hey, I take my time. I don't need nobody coming interrupting what we got going on.
Yeah, for sure. And when I married my last husband, part of the reason that I got out of that so quick was because I'm like, what am I exposing my daughter to? You know, what's going to be her perception of love when she grows up? And like, how much is she going to put up from a man because she watched me put up with it?
Have you ever had a kid tell you they were proud of you because you got away?
No. My oldest daughter, she's 19 now, and I think she's kind of realizing, you know, she always had her dad on a pedestal, but he didn't help much with raising her, and you know, whenever he was with her, it was all fun and games, and you know, so she was a daddy's girl, and then you know, her dad passed away, and it was hard on her, but I think she's kind of coming around and realizing like, hey, my mom really went through a lot, and she did a lot for me. So.
And the girls always put their dads on a pedestal.
Yeah. To
the point where it's blind.
I did too, even though it wasn't the greatest guy.
And when they wake up, it's kind of like, whoa, 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 whoa.
I always thought that my life would have been easier if my dad had been around. You know, I had him on this pedestal as he was always going to come save me, which never happened, and it never would have happened, and my life probably wouldn't have been better with him in it because he is also an alcoholic. But that was what I thought in my head as a child.
Right. Do you have any addictions?
I don't.
Amen.
I went through a really dark period, especially with battling custody of my youngest daughter, where I was drinking a lot, not at the house, because I won't keep alcohol at my house because of what I've been through, but just partying a lot, and got in with the wrong crowd and was doing cocaine for a while, but I stopped doing that. And I didn't even think of it as an addiction, but my therapist was like, like you've been through a lot and you got clean by yourself. Right. And I was like, well, I wasn't really doing it, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that's how addicts think.
Wow.
So I did have a little bit of a cocaine addiction, but I just stopped. I decided this is what I don't want out of life. So
just one day just woke up like, this is not it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I definitely got to have you come back.
Yeah. And
let's do another part of this, because I would like to dig deeper into some of your thoughts and just, it's a part of healing.
Mm-hmm.
We could, heal, even if you want to scream and shout or whatever it is, we could heal and let America see, let people see that you can go through the darkest times from childhood to adulthood and still be free.
And I didn't get this way overnight. I went through years of therapy, and I went through programs, mental health. Last year went through a program that was designed for veterans with PTSD, and it's concerning post-traumatic growth. And I wish that program were available to everybody, but
it's not.
They're not going to have the funding for that. So, but it's available to veterans and first responders.
I would definitely like to dig into that, because that was something that people need to hear. Maybe someone could piggyback through your testimony and start something like that. Oh man, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Tell everybody.
Only teared up a little bit.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right, man. I look forward to you coming back. This is going to be on YouTube, TikTok. Share your handles. I just really look forward to you coming back and sharing, especially what you, now we know what you've been through. Let's share help you heal. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.